Hi, English 1 students, Professor Dean Ramser, determined dean of this Friday, February 24th. And I thought I would go over some sample MLA formatted essays. So let me do a screen share with you. And I'll show you what I'm adding to the page. It says MLA sample essays. Let me do a screen share. Great. Okay, so we have this on the screen. And so what I'll do is I'll add some additional essays to this because sometimes when we're student writers, we'll see the same instructional information in one essay, but not notice it in another. We'll notice some instructions in one document, but we won't see it in something else. So I want to give everyone a chance to sort of take a look at different ways of formatting your essay. And I have a variety of samples. And I'll show you where I found these. They're from the Modern Language Association. So they're a credible source. That's always an important thing when you're doing any kind of research, is make sure that your sources are credible. And the Modern Language Association is credible because it is the foundation, the organization that has organized what MLA format, Modern Language Association format looks like. So it's the principles behind that requirement. So I think I've got it here. So let's take a look. Let's save all these, and they'll go back and look at this document here in a minute. I'm going to go back to my search engine, and I want to make sure that we see what I see here. So stop screen share there. Okay. So what I did was I went on, using Google, I typed in well, sample papers in MLA style, and this is the MLA style center. The email or the web address is style.mla.org/sample-papers/. So let me add that also to this document here. As well. There you go. Let me save this document. Okay, so let's save. We'll come back here. So I found this to be pretty helpful. You'll notice when you start looking at these essays that I saved into a page document. I'll put this in modules for this week. The different levels of sophistication and complexity to the essay. I'm not expecting your essays that are now, I think, 1,500 words or so to be exactly like this. These are longer essays, but the in-text citation you can copy, you can look at as examples, and the works cited pages you can look at as examples. The complexity of the sentence level construction is something you can strive towards. I'm not expecting you to meet it, but you can certainly look at it as what a sophisticated, complex student essay could look like. And so I want you to sort of use these as goals for you in your writing process. So this is where I found these essays. So let's go back to the page I have here on the screen. I'm going to add this to modules for this week. And we'll go through and look at these essays together. And hopefully we'll notice some things about them. So today is the 24th. This is the week here, so I can add it here, I guess. it here. I'm also going to add it on to week 7, which is coming up. There you go. Okay, so let's take a look at open it in week 7. So here we have on the screen. Let's stop screen share here. Screen share again, just to make sure that you're seeing it. Yep. Okay. So we have here maybe a dozen or so PDF files. You should be able to open them up and find them. If not, you can certainly go to this web address here and find them online if you're not able to open it in Canvas for some reason. So the MLA integrating sources, PP, that's a PowerPoint. Let's go down to this other one I had down here, MLA sample paper. Okay. Now, what I liked about this sample essay is the layout. I like that it has lots of white space. I like that it has boxes of information in the sort of the blue purple color and also in the green color. So it's pretty easy to look at. I like that it has arrows pointing to the different aspects of the essay. For example, the running header, last name and the page number, and that's done in Word. I'm not sure how Google Docs does that, but MLA is very, it's easy to format an MLA paper, MLA formatted style essay in Word. So if you don't have Word yet, I strongly encourage you to get that software. It should be available to you at a very inexpensive price, if not free, because you're a student at Lassen Community College. So use Word, and then from Word, you can either upload that Word document after you've saved it and close it down, or you can save it as a PDF file. Again, Adobe PDF should be available to you as a student. If not, you can probably, I guess, purchase the software, but Word you definitely need. So you have in the boxes here information. For example, in the upper left-hand corner is the student's name, the professor's name, the name of the class, and the date. And that's what an MLA formatted essay looks like. So for essays 3 through 6, it must be MLA formatted with MLA formatted in-text citation to an MLA formatted works cited page. You have a running header. And you'll have a note here about personal pronouns, I, we, us, etc. In general, pronouns can be challenging. And that said, if you're able to use a pronoun in an effective manner, like for example, your first essay and your second essay, you use pronouns, right? You used I in the first essay, and you used he or she or they or them, or perhaps even us if you're doing it second person in the second essay, which is generally supposed to be a third person. So usually you would use she or he or him or her. That said, I'm flexible on this issue if the narrative of what you're writing in essays 3 through 6 is not distracted by the use of pronouns. The best way to notice how your essay is structured, how it's flowing, how it's working as a document, is to read it aloud. I cannot emphasize enough the significance, the importance, the incredible necessity for you to read your writing aloud so you can hear the language, you can hear the structure of the sentences, you can hear when the language is working for your argument. You can also hear when the subject-verb agreements are not agreeing, either in the verb tense or in the subject-verb agreement in a very basic level. You can also hear when there's too many prepositional phrases. You can also hear when there's split infinity. Anyway, the point being is that when you read it aloud, you'll hear something that doesn't sound right. And this is generally true for every student writer, regardless of their first language. For example, in Latin languages like Spanish, for example, your your modifier and your verb could be in a different location, but the agreement between them is still the same. For example, the dog barked is a very basic subject verb agreement. Dogs do bark, so therefore it makes sense that a dog would bark. That's one level of the subject verb agreement. Also the verb tense, right? The dog is barking, so you need a helping verb is with barking. So the dog is barking makes sense. The dog barks, the dog barked, ed, past tense, right? That all makes sense. So when you read aloud, regardless of your first language, whether if it's not English, for example, it's still going to make sense. The exception for that would perhaps be some Asian languages where the subject verb agreement construction is a little different than in American English. That said, read it loud, you'll hear the language. I suggest that you read your books aloud as well. Read your essays that you're reading aloud. Read your essays that you're writing aloud. It really is going to help. Now, if you don't want to read all the essays that you're assigned to read, see if you can find them in an audible version. That way you can hear the language, even if it is a mechanical series or Alexa type voice. It still helps you hear the construction of the sentences, hear the subject verb agreement, hear when the commas are working, for example, or if there's too many commas. Comma splice is what it's called. That's when there's too many commas, or if there's too many prepositional phrases, or if there's a need for a helping verb like the is and the dog is barking. So reading aloud is really going to help you. So that said, this essay on the screen is a pretty good sample essay to look at for construction in MLA format. I like the boxes, they're informative and they point to what is being done. So for example, you have the title of the essay centered and it indicates what the essay is going to be about. In this case, the essay is about 19th century farming handbooks. You'll notice in the outline template that I handed you, or I put on Canvas a while back, how it has in the opening paragraph the hook, and then the background information for the thesis, and then the rough draft thesis. So there needs to be a hook in the beginning of the essay to bring the reader into the material. And it could be a fact, a quote, a piece of information, something that is contradictory, an oxymoron, something that's going to make the reader interested in what this essay is going to be reviewing or arguing. So let's see if we can find the hook in this one. While reading text written about 19th century farming, comma, I found a few authors who published books about the literature of the 19th century farming, comma, particularly agricultural journals, newspapers, pamphlets, and brochures. Okay, kind of a statement. These authors often place the farming literature they are studying into an historical context by discussing the important events in agriculture of the year in which the literature was published. See D. Marie, for example, period. Okay, that's informative. However, right, here's a transition to the argument. And how long is this essay? This essay is 10 pages long, so it's longer than your essay. So that means that this essay is going to cover more material than your essays are required to cover, because you're only comparing and contrasting 2 essays from the Low Norton Reader. That said, the construction of the introductory paragraph and the construction of the closing paragraph are going to be similar, or should be a model for you to look at for what you can do in your essay. So this opening paragraph, this introductory paragraph, has some background information, however, is a transition to the main argument. However, while these authors discuss journals, newspapers, pamphlets, and brochures, comma, I could not find much discussion about another important source of farming knowledge, colon, farming handbooks, right? The title of this essay is called Toward a Recovery of 19th Century Farming Handbooks. This argument is going to be about the need for farming handbooks. My goal, and this is very clear and almost pedantic, very, very elementary, very basic I'm not a fan of this approach where you state what you're going to be stating. That said, it does work. There are professors and instructors that accept it or encourage it. I'm not one of them. However, I do acknowledge its function and its purpose, and it does work. So in this essay we're looking at on the screen, it states, my goal in this paper is to. So if that helps you get to your argument, your thesis in your essay, great, go ahead and do it. I will accept it. You're not going to lose points for it. I'm just not a fan of it. I think that you don't need to state that you're going to be stating something. I think that your argument will be that the argument without stating, and this is my argument. I'm going to argue that, but I won't go on about it. So this does work. So my goal in this paper is to bring this source into the agricultural literature discussion. And what an essay does, what an essay should be doing, is joining the discussion about the topic that your essay is examining. So in your essay you're working on now, you're comparing and contrasting two essays from the Little North Reader. You may have noticed that these two essays you're looking at, for example, examine identity, or examine marginalization, or examine isolation, or examine surveillance, or examine how language manipulates or can manipulate, or whatever the topic is that you're looking at in these two essays. So your essay is joining the discussion about that topic. Perhaps even joining the discussion about the topic that's in that essay that you're looking at along with the other essay. So your essay is not an isolated thing. It's not disconnected. It is connected, although intellectually, metaphysically, so to speak. So you're joining the discussion. Imagine there's a group of people, scholars that are looking at the two essays that you're examining and talking about, writing about, discussing the elements of the essays and how they touch upon this main topic that you think is critical to both of them. So in this essay we see on the screen, that's what this essay is going to argue. My goal in this essay, in this paper, is to bring this source into the agricultural literature discussion, and that being that farming handbooks need to be talked about more in the context of how we research farming. By connecting 3 agricultural handbooks from the 19th century with 19th century agricultural history. So this essay we're looking at on the screen here is going to look at handbooks, farming handbooks, and look at 3 specific ones as examples, right, of the tools that farmers used in the 19th century. I don't know about you, but on my mom's side, they were farmers in Virginia. So they've been farmers for hundreds of years, well, at least 200 years I know of. So they have a lot to say about farming. So I'm sure they have handbooks on farming. So this essay about handbooks and farming would be relevant to them. Although the product that my mom's side of the family produced was tobacco, or she called it tobacco, it's still relevant to the discussion about how to farm that product, that plant, and harvesting that plant and packaging that plant and bringing that plant to market. So this essay on the screen is looking at farming handbooks, and this essay is going to be examining how 3 agricultural handbooks from the 19th century are significant and important, need to be looked at. Okay. And this also works for many essays. Again, I'm not a fan about stating what you're going to be stating, but that said, it does work. So this helps you. Okay. To achieve this goal, I've organized my paper into 4 main sections. Now, this kind of language is used in graduate theses and dissertations. It's very pedantic, meaning it's very elementary and basic and almost rudimentary, very step by step by step by step. So there's a lot it's frequently used in those kinds of writing assignments. So I accept it. I understand the need for it. So it does work. It does help you sort of move the discussion forward to the next topic. So the opening paragraph talked about the problem, the argument, what they're going to do. The next paragraph is going to be looking at the organization of the paper, that works as well. And this is sort of what this outline template that I gave you before does. Okay, so they have organized my paper into 4 main sections, 2 which have subsections. In a longer paper, you're going to have sections and subsections. And your essay, which is about 1,500 words or so, it's like 5, 6, 7 pages long. You don't need to organize it in 4 main sections and 2 that have subsections. But if that helps you, great, do it. I'm not requiring it. This essay that's on the screen does this thing, this organizational structure of 4 main sections and 2 that have subsections. Your essay could have it, but it's not required. If it helps you again to organize your writing, go ahead and do it. Another thing I like about this essay we see on the screen, the boxes reference what MLA is. It's double spacing throughout the document. Right. You would say if your paper is long, you may want to write about how your paper is organized, which is sort of what I was saying. Since your paper is not that long, you may not need to do that. When using headings, right? So a heading is usually for a longer paper. Your essay doesn't need to have headings, but if you choose to do imitate this format that's on the screen, great. I'll accept it. Headings, though not required by MLA style, can help the overall structure and organization of the paper. That is true, especially if there's several parts of it. So, for example, maybe in your essay that you're looking at these 2 essays from Waldorf Reader, you want to look at the change in this topic, whatever this topic is you're looking at, that these 2 essays share in common in some way, that maybe it's changed from the 20th century to the 21st century. We only need to look at social media and the internet and what impact that technology is having on not only language, but communication, thought, even the organization of thought. And one could argue the impact it's having on critical thinking and whether it's increasing critical thinking or whether it is suppressing critical thinking. Right? Because sometimes we're sort of, we have a reactionary response to a heading as opposed to reading the entire thing. 30 years ago, we read a newspaper and read the entire article to understand what was being discussed or reviewed or analyzed in that article in the newspaper. Now we may only read a heading and some sort of tweet or blog or posting or hashtag or Instagram meme, for example, to get a sense of what's being discussed or implied in that. So the social media and the internet, those technologies certainly have impacted. So your essay could have, going back to the sample essay on the screen, could have sections. One that looks at 20th century up until 2000, and look at how, whatever your topic is, has changed after 2000. I want to say that the internet and social media came into play. Certainly, the home computers were in play around 2000 or so. I'm trying to think of when my daughter. She's born in '91. I bought a home computer when she was probably 5 or 6, and we had sort of a Pong type game to play where you bounce this ball back and forth, and then you could spend more money, you could spend thousands of dollars to get a more sophisticated computer, which is nothing compared to what we have now. So you could, in your essay, look at 20th century and 21st century. You could look at decades. If you're going to organize it by decades, right? 1990s, 2010s, for example. You could look at geographic, geopolitical territories, how that's changed. For example, Ukraine gained independence and what would be considered the Orange War of 2014. So you could look at that region before Russian left You could look at another area of geopolitical where things changed. So you could contrast before that event occurred, whatever it is, and after the event. So there is a need and necessity for this kind of structural organization in an essay. And if yours needs that, then you may want to look at this sample essay on the screen as a way to structure your essay to follow that. Okay, what else? Let's look at some in-text citations. Here you have author's last name and page number, author's last name and page number. And because we're still referring to this person, Hurt, we don't need Hurt's name in this sentence here. We just need the page number 128. Hurt is still being referred to. It's the last reference, Hurt. So Hurt is also part of this sentence here. So we just have the page number 128. And again, it's implied that Hurt is part of this reference here. So we just need the page number. Right. So the three ways of referencing a source: a direct quote, we have quotation marks. So here's an example. We have, right, quote, less attention to the production of surplus commodities like wheat, tobacco, pork, or beef, end quote, in the page number. You could also have, for example, in this quotation up here, let's go up here. So you got a direct quote, you got a summary, and you got a paraphrase. So this reference here, Hurt, page 127, looks like a summary. Before 1820, the rural community accounted for 80% of consumption of farmers' goods. Hurt, 127. So it reads more like a summary. A paraphrase is when the language that's being referenced is either too specific or too technical, or a different language, for example, and you need to reword it in language that the reader, the audience of your essay could understand. So it looks like, looking at this sentence, it sounds like more of a summary than a paraphrase. So three ways of referencing a source: direct quote, where you have quotation marks, a summary, or a paraphrase. Paraphrase, again, is used when the language that's being referenced is either too specific, too technical, or a language that's not known to the reader. For example, a non-English language, for example. With that said, it could, I'm thinking of a paraphrase could also be a visual language, like American Sign Language, right? Because it's not the spoken language, it's not the written language. So maybe you want to have an image, make sure you cite it correctly, right? So you got a figure 1, for example, below that image, and then you show someone doing the sign, you know, some sort of signing, like, where is it? Whatever it is. Okay, so that's that sample essay. Let's take a look at another one. Let's look at Chu. Okay, let's go back and try it again. I'm not sure why that's not working. Okay, let's go back. Okay, I'm not sure why that's having a challenge. So I'll go over to this page here. Stop screen share, share. Go on this page here. Okay, so I'm screen sharing this essay, make sure that I'm screen sharing the essay. Yep, okay. Okay. So MLA format, running header, last name, page number, student name, professor name, class name, date. Title of the essay is centered. It indicates what this essay is about. This is a published book. It's italicized. Here's a quotation mark. Is this game legal in China? Okay. This is looking at gaming. Okay. Nice conversational language. Imagine my headache when a post containing the above question was the first thing greeting me when I logged on to. Okay. So it sort of brings the reader into this writer's environment. This is a 15-page essay, so it's going to have more information than yours. However, let's just look at the in-text citation. Again, reference this question, is this game legal? Again, reference this published book. Here's some websites. I'm not a fan of contradictions in academic essays. I think it's better to spell it out. So I would find that objectionable. The truth, however, it didn't matter, right? It did not matter. I don't like it causes, anyway, I'm not a fan of that. Okay, where are the in-text citations? Okay, here's one. Okay, so this information in these cultural biases, while at times not malignant at the surface, could breed disastrous consequences as displayed by online xenophobia against Asians based on cultural misgivings during the COVID-19 pandemic. And here's the source. Okay, so there's an in-text citation. No in-text citations in that paragraph. Okay, here's an in-text citation. Here's Wang and Choi et al. Means that there's several authors in this book or article. So they're only going to reference the first one because there's too many to list here. Okay, now this tells me immediately that this essay is a graduate level essay. You would not identify methodology in an essay in the first or second year of college, but more in a senior year type essay, or again, like I mentioned, graduate school. So it could be part of a master's thesis. For example, it's 15 pages long, so it's probably more like a senior essay. 15 pages is too short for a master's thesis, but methodology is certainly part of that academic environment. Okay, let's keep looking. Okay, it doesn't have any in-text citations. Okay, yeah, this is a research paper. Methodology and findings are headings that you would see in an academic research paper, usually at the graduate level, in a master's course, for example. Okay, you got tables, that's also master's level research. You don't need to have tables in yours. Another reference to a source. Okay, so this one's not so good for my objective of having. Okay, so this one won't work. So let's go back. Let's go back here. Take a look at the significance of fiction. Okay, let's take a look at that essay. Okay, this is probably closer to what you're writing about, because this is writing about writing. Again, MLA format, last name first, last name, page number, student name, professor name, course name, date, title is centered. Everything is MLA formatted, meaning it's double space. It's 12-point font size. It's Times New Roman style. Right. This author writes, and here's the quote, and here's the page number, and then analysis of the quote. Black emphasizes it's just like your rhetorical precess that you've been practicing. Again, yeah, this is just like a rhetorical precess, right? The author, the citation, what the author is doing, how it's connected to other things. Here's a published book. The reader's sympathies lie with the protagonist. Good way of bringing the writer of this essay into the discussion without using the pronoun I or us or we. The reader's sympathy implies that the reader, the writer of this essay is the reader. So it's a very, it's more specific. One of the challenges of pronouns, and this is where there could be pronoun confusion, is if the pronouns are misused or if they're overused, it gets confusing who is doing what, because there's too many pronouns, too many I or she or they, them, her. So I recommend that this strategy of identifying, in this case, the reader's sympathies lie with, is great. There's no pronoun confusion there. Okay, Black explains, the author explains. Here's a quote, here's a page number. Okay, so this seems to be a style that this student writer has learned. One of my colleagues, the chair of the English department at Chaffey College, for example, like the format of introducing a citation and then explaining it. So there'd be 2, maybe 3 sentences. I like the 1-sentence construction myself, but he was a very, very fond of introducing and then citation. So you have the quote and then the explanation, and that's what this looks like here. They've done it twice now. The student writer has done a quote and then explained what the quote is doing. They did a quote and they explained what it's doing. Again, I'm a fan of using 1 sentence for that. This student writer has learned that it's acceptable to use 2 sentences. That's okay. It works. Okay, more context, references. Okay, let's keep going on. Again, the book is the thing being discussed. Okay, here's a block quote. Block quote is an MLA format for a large quote, meaning there's more than 4 lines. But this essay is 10 pages long. I don't think your essays need block quotes. That said, if there's a need for it, for example, if you're quoting a poem, a stanza, like 4 lines from a poem, for example, or a document that every word is critical for the reader of your essay to understand, then I understand why you would quote the entire, 4+ lines. So if you do need to do that, and again, I don't think you do, then this is how it would look. So you have this introductory sentence with a signal phrase to compare them specifically to refugees. Ivan Krastev's definition of a refugee is helpful. And here's the definition and period and the number on the page where it was found. This is what an MLA formatted block quote would look like. And I could see why it would be needed in this essay, because they're looking at refugees, and this writer, Ivan Krastev's definition of a refugee is a sort of a cornerstone. It's a reference point in this essay. So I understand why it's there. generally you want to have about 3-4 lines of analysis for each line that you're quoting. So in this case, you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 lines that are being quoted. So I would expect 18, 20 lines of analysis. Okay, so one key element, although that's good analysis, good quoting. Here you have a direct quote, and then you have the author's last name and page number. That's an in-text citation format. There you have page number. We're still referencing, the student writer still referencing this Ishiguro, the author. So you don't need to use their last name again, just the page number in this paragraph. Okay, here's more. Okay, so they're referencing Never Let Me Go as a primary text. Here's another source explains, and here's the page numbers where those words were found. So this is a pretty good example. Let's take a look at another one. Again, Emily formatted, last name, page number, student name, professor name, name of the class, date. The title of the essay is centered. Everything is Emily formatted. It's Times New Roman font style. It's 12-point font size. It's double spaced. Okay, you have information. Here's a citation. Okay, here's a source. Here's a quote. And this is stating what it's going to be stating. This paper argues that slavery remains alive and well in the 21st century through the modern day institutions called the prison industrial complex, aided by mass incarceration that targets people of color. So that's part of the main argument in this essay. It even states this paper argues. And then it's going to go on to explain why this argument needs to be looked at. It's a larger paper. It's 10 pages long. So you have headings. Here's another citation. 2 million people, 7%. And here's the source for that reference. So this is revoked. It's on page 1. So revoked is going to be on the works cited page. Here's the works cited page. It has works cited, those words, works cited, centered. It's Times New Roman font style. It's 12-point font size. It's double spaced. Everything is double spaced. And here is your sources. And we're looking at that one source called revoked. And here's where it's at. Pretty good works cited page. So let's go back to Canvas. So I put under Emily format essays, all these sample essays, take a look at them. They're pretty good examples to look at for your writing. Let's take a look at Samantha's paper. It's just going to open up, please. Yay, great, okay. So make it a little bit larger. You got last name, page number, student name, professor name, class name, date, title, centered. This follows the rhetorical precise template where you have the opening sentence, author's name, some information about what that source is. In this case, it's a novel from 1814. This is the title. It begins and ends with the topic of marriage. So we got information about this source, and even the title suggests that this essay is going to be about Mansfield Park, marriage as a dubious goal in Mansfield Park. Okay. In this regards, okay, it seems to fit into the genre of the courtship novel, a form popular in the 18th century novel in which the plot is driven by the heroine's difficulties in attracting an offer from the proper suitor. According to, right, this is the signal phrase, according to the courtship novel, quote, detailed, notice in this quote, they didn't copy the entire sentence in that source by Green. They only quoted the words needed to make sense, to make this sentence understandable, comprehensive. Right? Quote, detailed a young woman's entrance into society, the problems arising from that situation, her courtship, and finally her choice, almost always fortunate among suitors, end quote, and the page number. So Green should have something on the works cited page. Let's take a look at the works cited page. Works cited page centered. It's alphabetical. Green, here it is. That's the source for that quote in the very beginning of that paper. Okay, so now let's go back and take a look at modules for week 7. Week 7. Okay, so we've got readings from Lowell Norton Reader here. Got a rhetorical pieces for each of those. You have a Q&A about each of those essays. You've got your rough draft and outline using the outline template. They'll be due in a couple of weeks. Just for week 7. Writer's reference 7, chapter 7, word choice. Some Q&A about that. And I also saved it as a PDF. So it's pretty standard stuff, right? I usually have some reading assignments, some writing assignments. You've got Q&A about the essays from Lowell Norton Reader. You got Q&A about chapter 7 from a writer's reference. You've got rhetorical pieces for those essays from Lowell Norton Reader, and some work being done on your essay 4, which is a comparative analysis essay. So hopefully that's informative and helpful. I'll post these assignments probably later today. And if you have any questions, reach out to me. I'll respond as soon as I can. And I thank you for your time. Let me stop share there. Thank you so much and have a great day. Take care. Bye-bye.